Thank you so very much, everybody, for joining us today on this ACE Learns session. My name is Elise Cogburn, she, her pronouns. My official title here is National Outreach and Recruitment Strategy Manager. One of the aspects of my job, which I love, is connecting with ACE alumni. And in my role, I have kind of created a alumni ambassador program that kind of connects alumni, ACE members, alumni, to the ACE community. And today I could not be more excited to have three amazing ACE alumni here, all from the Fish and Wildlife Service, who all happen to work in the same office together, which I think is incredibly amazing. But without further ado, I would love to introduce the three lovely women joining us today, Amber, Aubin, and Gabby. I will throw it off to you and share my screen as we start going. Maybe. All right, can folks see my PowerPoint screen slide?
Looks good to me.
All righty, and I will flip it over to Aubin, Amber, and Gabby. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Elise. Hi, everyone. I'll start us off here. We're just going to do a quick introduction for each of us and kind of our journeys that we've taken through ACE, all the way up through getting a full-time employment with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So just to give you some brief background, I'm Aubin Douglas. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently a cartographer for the Division of Realty within Region 6. For us, that's the Mountain Prairie region. So we have 8 states that is it within our region. And I'm based in Lakewood, Colorado. Do we want to do quick intros, Amber and Gabby, like that, or do we want to just dive into background and stories?
Whatever you want. I'm flexible.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give a little background then and kind of walk you through my story. It'll be a little similar to Amber's, but I was hired actually the same time as Amber in June 2019. So we came on board just like a week apart, I think, and into the Division of Realty as ACE Fellows. She is a Realty Specialist Fellow, and me as a Cartography and GIS Analyst Fellow. And within the same office that we're in right now, actually. So we haven't moved around that much since being here. But yeah, we came on in June of 2019, and we had about, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 months before COVID sent us home. So we had a good amount of time getting to know each other and know others within our office at that time. And then, yeah, we all got the boot right before Amber and I were supposed to go out into the field and get some field experience. And literally that Monday we got sent home to work. And so that was just part of the joy of being, getting onboarded into ACE and the Fish and Wildlife Service during COVID. So my background is in GIS, as I was saying. I have a background also in planning and biology and ecology, a kind of varied, wide background. I'm happy to talk more about that if folks are interested in how I got into the GIS side and world for the Fish and Wildlife Service. But being a cartographer, just want to give you a brief background of what that is for me. It's, especially in realty, it's making a lot of maps. That's what cartography means. And then diving into data management for our cadastral data. So that's when we acquire a piece of land within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or an easement on that land. Then I am one of the people, I should say, I work as part of a team who is in charge of adding that data to our cadastral data and managing it, making sure it's correct. And we work very closely with our surveyors and our realty specialists on our team to make sure everything is looking good and is accurately reflected for the public, because our data does get rolled up into national data sets like PAD-US, which is Protected Areas Database for the US, as well as like Google Maps and Apple Maps and things like that. So it's a really cool job. It's very desk oriented. So I don't get out that often, which I'm okay with. I do miss the field work sometimes, but one of the great things of being part of the Fish and Wildlife Service, and I think the DOI, is that you get a lot of opportunities to train and to travel and to see other places. And that is something I really, really value and enjoy, is getting to meet new people and go see new things all the time. Especially NCTC, which is our National Conservation Training Center. So if you haven't had a chance to get over there yet, like, always ask to, because it's a cool place to be. And I ultimately transitioned from an ACE fellow into a cartographer in, January 2021, I believe. Yeah. And so I've been with the service ever since. And now I'll pass it over to Amber to give her background.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Amber Furness. I also use she, her pronouns. And as Aubin said, I started at the same time as she did back in June of 2019. And I was an American Conservation Experience Realty Assistant Fellow in the office I work in today with Aubin. And yeah, I came on right around the same time that she did permanently. It was just a few months before I came on in November of 2020. And trying to think of what else to share. As a realty specialist, yeah, I'll give you a little background on what I do and how Aubin and I work together as realty specialists and cartographers. So the biggest part of my job is doing land acquisition for the National Wildlife Refuge System. So that could look like a lot of different things. That could be purchasing 80 acres outright and adding it to a National Wildlife Refuge. So we own it outright. Maybe we open that up to the public, and it's just another 80 acres of that refuge. But another way it could look is purchasing a conservation easement. For example, I recently was able to help a landowner put a conservation easement on 4,000 acres of wetland property. And it's not open to the public, but it does protect the wildlife habitat in perpetuity. And then another much smaller part of my job these days, because we actually have realty specialists who are only doing this, would be issuing right-of-way permits to companies like wind farms and electrical power companies that need to cross our lands to set up their infrastructure. So I will work with them to give them the ability to do that. And then my background before I became an ACE fellow, I got a bachelor's in environmental studies and biology, and then I went straight into a master's in biology, and I was studying dragonflies, and then I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I spent a little bit of time with the Nature Conservancy, and in the private sector. I found my way into land protection immediately before coming to the service in my ACE role in 2019. All right, Gabby.
All righty. Thanks, Amber.
Yes.
My name is Gabby, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a budget technician out of Lakewood, Colorado with Amber and Aubin. And my ACE journey goes back to 2021, kind of looking to pivot. My background before that was renewable energy, legal, working out of law offices. So I was kind of looking to get back into the environmental side of things. And I was on LinkedIn, just like we're all looking for jobs. LinkedIn was ACE popped up, and I saw that the Emerging Professionals in Conservation program had an opening, and I was looking to move to Denver. So I put my name in and took the job in October of 2021. And it's just kind of a full circle moment because when I started, Amber was spearheading. She kind of like helped me get started. We were working on, well, pretty much I got brought on to help with the National Archives Records Administration deadline that they had put upon them. And I got started. Amber was there, Aubin was there. So this is kind of a full circle moment for all of us. I just hit 1 year of employment 2 days ago. So permanent employment with the Fish and Wildlife Service. So this was kind of a great timing on this. But yeah, so I was in that fellowship for a little under 2 years before I was hired on permanently. And yeah, that's kind of my little spiel. But if it wasn't for Amber and Aubin kind of helping me funnel me in, I don't think I would be on this call. So this is exciting.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love Acers helping Acers helping Acers. I love to see it. Alrighty. I just wanted to chime in real quick because I just love all the connections that you three have had and the mentorship that's been kind of just organically created. So it's just been very, very, very fun to connect with you all. Alrighty, let's dive in.
Sounds good. Amber, Gabby, you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
So we wanted to give a little bit of background and like provide tips and yeah, just advice that we have found that works for making that jump from being an ACE fellow or intern to a full-time federal employee at least within the DOI and within the Fish and Wildlife Service, because that's where we all have our experience. But yeah, we created some points that we wanted to make and reiterate for you all, which you all may have already heard, but things just that we found to be important in our own job searches and being successful in attaining a full-time federal employment. And so first off is just looking at location. So what offers, yeah, there's different avenues for like location and what might be said under location for each of those job postings on USAJobs. So remote jobs are definitely something that are a hot commodity, I'll say, and they're getting more rare just based on what I've seen in my own. Amber, Gabby, feel free to jump in if you've seen otherwise. But yeah, you want to pay attention to if you're looking for a remote job that you definitely query for that. Otherwise, yeah, look for locations that you would like to move to or are interested in. Even if you're just interested and it's a cool job, I would say go ahead and apply because you never know what might happen. And you might be able to negotiate, where you can land afterwards. So there is that third point under that first bullet that says location negotiable after selection. Sometimes there's some wiggle room. So they might just say within an office within region 6 or something like that. And that way you have a little bit more flexibility. You also want to pay attention if you're looking for telework opportunities. Right now, the DOI is, this is specific, I think, just to the DOI, not the USDA, but the DOI is mandating or has mandated 50% return to the office for certain employees. Right now, it's just regional office and headquarters employees, as well as, is there another band of people and employees that are included in that? Field offices are excluded right now, but basically
now.
work, 50% of the time. So 5 days out of every pay period, you have to go into the office. So it's good to know if you're eligible to telework, if you would like to, for the other 5 days. Certain positions like refuge management, maintenance, things like that, usually you have to be on site pretty much every day. So that's another thing to pay attention to. Amber, Gabby, you want to take it to the next one? We can just kind of go down.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when it comes to looking for remote positions, say I typed in the word realty specialist into the search bar on USA Jobs. So then the positions would come up, and on the right-hand side, you'll see a pane, and the very first filter at the top is actually for remote jobs. So you can click the drop down and it'll give you a couple of choices. It'll say show only remote or exclude them from your search results. And then if you're looking for telework, I actually had to figure out how this shows. So that's actually under the location tab. And if you enlarge that, you can choose offers telework and select it, and it'll only show you the jobs that offer telework. I'm trying to think where it says location negotiable after selection.
That should be under location as well.
Oh,
And
yep.
in certain,
Yep. When you're actually looking at the job itself. Yep, you're right. Yeah. So that's all I had to add for now, just a few navigational tips.
No, it's great.
Gabby?
No, yeah, I mean, you guys covered that well. So do we want to go on a closing date, and are we, because I was like, I'm ready for the hiring path, but I don't want to skip points. So
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about, closing. I mean, closing date's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, it'll tell you it usually in, like, it has a little clock that is color coded with green, orange, or red, depending on how close you are to the closing date and how much time you have left to apply. Sometimes the jobs will say this will close no matter what after 75 or 100 applicants, have been received. So pay attention to that, because then it really counts on how quickly you can get your application package together and submitted.
Yep.
And so I'll just say, I've seen some where it's like 50 or 35 applicants and it's closed within, a couple hours, like at the end of the day, basically, that they opened it. So it can be very fast depending on the job. And if it's remote or something like that's a hot commodity, basically. So that's all I'll say about the closing days. Pay attention to that. Make sure you have everything prepped. Give yourself more time to prepare your application package. It takes longer than you think. And just be very aware of that.
and I'll add on to that. Never wait till the very end of a closing date. If I am a notorious procrastinator, I won't lie on that. And so, you see that it's, you have to submit it by tomorrow. Don't wait till tomorrow to submit, because USAJobs can go down, and it has gone down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep. And even, which we'll touch on later, if you have to do, I don't want to call it an exam, the
Assessment.
Assessment, thank you. That takes quite longer than you expect as well. And so not waiting till the day of, or, a couple hours before, because there's maybe some things you find later on that you didn't know about. So just another thing on closing date.
Yeah. Especially if you're not on Eastern time. I'm pretty sure that all the jobs close Eastern time. And so you have to remember that as well.
Add it to the list. Add it to the list.
Yeah. Next bullet, you think? All right. Diving into department and agency. So yeah, just being aware of the different department or agencies that's listing this position. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can do research on each of them individually. Usually in the job posting, they'll have a little blurb about the department and or the agency, or sometimes a video, which is pretty cool. I've seen that for a lot of USGS jobs. And that's just like good background to have, especially if you get to the interview stage.
Yeah.
Gabby? Yeah.
If you're in your search results and you want to filter, there it'll say exactly what we've got on the slide there, department and agency, and you can pop that tab open, and then it's got a couple sub tabs, one for department, one for agency, and you can scroll down the list. And if you only want to look at the Department of Army, you can select it and look at just those jobs.
Well, I think for the next point, hiring paths and special hiring authority, we can hop onto that one. I know all of us, we got the PLC, the Public Land Corps Authority, which was a huge, it's non-competitive hiring. that we got with finishing our, I guess, the fellowship that we did. We finished it on time. We were able to get that, and that was a huge help. And it was also something we had to attach to our actual application on USAJobs. And that, like, it was like a completion form. And so that was something that really put us ahead of, someone else who hadn't had that PLC. So I'll say that on that part.
Yeah,
But there
that's
is a
helpful.
bunch.
I will say if there are any ACE members here in the space, a lot of our positions are PLC eligible. So I would definitely reach out to your point of contact at ACE to see if your position is eligible and to go through the steps on completing that. Because like the folks have mentioned here, it's a huge benefit on those USAJobs.gov applications. It kind of puts you above the rest of the general application population, which is just a really nice added benefit, especially for some of those really competitive positions, especially the telework ones and the remote work positions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, my bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. No, wrong way.
I didn't even notice that first. I'm like, what are you talking about?
So there we go. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. I swear I'm a professional. Awesome. So the other special hiring authorities, do any three of you have any kind of special connections or any thoughts or tips when it comes to other hiring authorities that you or potentially your coworkers or employees have dealt with?
I would say just be aware of what they are, and what, oh, you mean hiring authorities, not the hiring paths. Is that what you're talking about, Elise?
Yes, or both, right?
Oh, okay.
Either or, yeah.
Yeah. It can be a little difficult sometimes to suss out what you can qualify for. So having a good contact, or doing your own research is really helpful. I'm going to drop a link into the chat that just has an overview from USA Jobs about those different hiring paths and how you can qualify and who you can contact, to figure out if you qualify, basically. Because again, it's something you want to know before you apply, or start applying, because you can get going down one path and then realize, oh, I'm not eligible. And then that's a big bummer. You wasted time, or maybe you were eligible and you didn't know, and so you didn't apply. And yeah, so it's just good to be aware of what you can qualify for. But yeah, we listed in the PowerPoint here different options which might be applicable to you depending on your own background. If you're a student or recent graduate, if it's public, anybody can apply. So that's one that always apply. You're always eligible for. Yeah, Native Americans, people with disabilities, Peace Corps. Amber might be able to talk to that a little bit. And veterans and military spouses are also other hiring paths to get special consideration.
Yeah, and Peace Corps, it's kind of a bummer. You serve for 2 years, but you get only 1 year of status under that, with ability to apply as a Peace Corps and AmeriCorps visa. So yeah, I don't have a lot of experience. I wish I knew more about it at the time that I had it, and that year went by very quickly. So yeah, I would definitely encourage people to take advantage of it if they have it for that 1 year, and do better than I did. And then just to move us along, there is a pay tab, and you can search by salary from $0 up to 500,000 apparently. Or you can do it by grade, which is typically what I do, just because I know my grade. I know that if I have 1 year or more as a GS11, I'm eligible for GS12 positions, or anything less than that. So that's typically how I do my searching.
Awesome.
And I think that the tip at the important at the bottom is awesome. Get in here and create a profile so that you can have that ability to set up job alerts to your email. You can get them daily, you can get them weekly, I think. And if you want to pop in oh, I want to look for GS 7, 8, and 9. You can narrow your search just to that. And then you won't miss anything. And it will tell you if a job is closing in like 3 days, for example. So it'll send you a reminder.
Oh, that's really helpful. All right, so reviewing job announcements. Who wants to take this?
I guess I can start. Oh, go
Okay,
ahead.
go ahead, Robin. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gabby.
All right. Okay. I just did it over like, maybe a year ago was a just, but for reviewing job announcements, there is promotion potential. As someone who's still navigating that whole understanding of USA jobs and the verbiage, GS level. So let's say you start at a 7. Some postings will say it's a 7, 9, 11, or a promotion potential could only be a 9. So that means in that you can only get up to 9 in that position schedule. So then once I hit that 9, I could move in steps, or I could reapply and get something with either, once I have that 9 year, 1 whole year is a 9, I could apply for an 11 or a 10 or 11. It depends on the hiring schedule for that. Also, Amber and Aubin, please jump in if I miss anything important on that. But required documents, they give these little asterisks, which I remember being like, okay, those are really important, but it'll list them at the bottom of the announcement. If you have applied via USAJobs before, it saves them. So that's another big perk. And it will also, in that attachment area of your job announcement, once you're in USAJobs, it will have those ones that you uploaded before and have them as asterisks next to them saying like, hey, you need to upload a resume, or you need to do, I believe if you can do like mid-year, they ask for your appraisal mid-year reviews, agency contact info. I know in the past, so in the bottom, it gives you someone's email, and just, I reach out and I say, hi, like I've submitted an application for this, just so you know. And the people usually do respond, actually. I don't know if Amber and Aubin, you've done that before, but I have sent an email, confirming that was received. It was always like a pro tip that I got in college too, that they told me to do. So habit, I guess you could say. And so keywords, skills, experience, qualifications, that whole, that is like the big chunk of where I think we could focus a lot of this presentation on, because that is where your resume, you will build your resume on those really important sections of the job announcement. So like I always say, like, of course, look at all those important details of like where it's at, and the grade scale and all of that fun stuff. But the keywords for building that resume are like the most important parts that I think I learned from my mentors in the Fish and Wildlife Service to really highlight those. So I don't know, Amber and Aubin, do you want to build on that or anything?
I will say, I mean, we might get into that in our tips and tricks slide that we also have coming up, because a few things definitely pinged for me. But yeah, I think you did a good job covering that. But yeah, just really making sure you have all the required documents you need, because they'll let you, like, if you submit something and it was the incorrect document, they accidentally like put under, some like PLC or like another thing that you're supposed to upload, and it wasn't the right one. They'll just be like, okay, we received it, and then 2 months later they'll be like, oh, by the way, we didn't actually look at your resume and your application package because it wasn't complete, and they'll let you know that way after the fact. So definitely triple check everything.
Yeah.
Not speaking from experience or anything. But yeah, the keywords and everything are very important. Amber, go ahead.
I think my only comment is I actually have USAJobs .gov pulled up, and I was checking out an announcement. And I noticed on the promotion potential, this has been kind of a tricky one, because the job I was just looking at said, if you go under pay scale and grade, GS 7, And so you might think, okay, this is a GS7, like that's it. But then if you keep scrolling down, it will have a section that says promotion potential. And it actually said a 9 there. Whereas this other job actually says scale and grade 11, 12. And so you already know that the promotion potential is a 12, but I would say look in both places to know what you're getting.
Good point. Shall we dive into the questionnaires and assessments?
Do it.
Okay, questionnaires. So those are, again, things that you have the opportunity, I'll say, to click on the link to view the questionnaire before you submit or start your application package.
Yes.
Do that. That's where a lot of your skills and like your keywords will come from that. Because they want to see, I'll say the first hurdle of people want to see all the things in the questionnaire that you're saying you can do. They want to see that reflected, sometimes verbatim, in your CV or your resume. And so if you have to spoon feed it to them. So if you say GIS in your resume and they say geographic information systems or science in the questionnaire, they want to see, the full thing. They don't want to see GIS. They don't know what that is. So I'll just say, spell it out, spoon feed it. If you have to copy and paste it, do it. Because that is the first hurdle you have to get through just to get, maybe the hiring panel to look at your resume if you make the cert. So definitely spell it out.
That's good to know, not to cut corners with acronyms.
Yeah.
I am a sucker for that. So that's good to know. Thank you.
Unless they use the acronym, then put the acronym in there.
Yeah,
Go crazy. Yeah.
And one trick that I do, as Alvin mentioned, you can preview it. So say I got a job alert today and I wanted to take a look at the job and I saved it in my saved jobs, and tomorrow I'm gonna apply for it. I'll actually do a download, like a print to PDF of that questionnaire, and then I save it on my computer with my application materials. And I'll go through the questionnaire and I'll use the highlight feature in Adobe and I'll choose my answer in advance. So it stands out. And when it's time for me to actually do the questionnaire, when I'm submitting the application, I'll just pull that PDF up on one screen with the application with the actual ability to respond on the other screen, and I can just click right through it. I don't have to spend time thinking about it, maybe while the clock is ticking on the deadline.
That's smart.
I will say, like, I've even before taken the questionnaire and the job posting, I copied and pasted it into ChatGPT and I said, please give me the top, 20 skills or, experience that they're looking for. And it's been pretty good. I was just curious about how ChatGPT was going to work with that. And it did a pretty good job. So if you're really tight on time and it's like, this is going to close after 75 applicants and you're scrambling to get your resume, full and complete and ready to be submitted, that's one shortcut that could help you. I wouldn't rely on it solely, I'll just say that, but it's helpful.
That's awesome.
In terms of the assessment, and unless Gabby, you had anything to add about the questionnaire? Okay. Speaking from personal experience, you must hit enter. First we'll say 48 hours to complete. They'll send you a link and say, okay, here, the timer's running. You have 48 hours, 2 days basically to complete this. Otherwise, we're not accepting your application. Like, it won't go any further. And so it's basically, you get different assessments depending on what the hiring panel wants to see. I've had 4 altogether in one for one of my job applications. And I'll say it's a little intimidating because it's all online, and then you basically get 5 minutes to answer each question, and it's a multiple choice, so you get to select one, and then you must hit enter before the 5 minutes runs out to go to the next question. It won't save your answer. It won't save her answer and go to the next one. It'll just say, oh, she didn't, you know, whoever didn't answer this, and you get a 0 for that question. And those scores will stay with you for a full year, no matter what. So whenever you apply for something, they'll say, oh, we already have this applicant's assessments on file. We don't need to have them retake it. And you can't retake it even if you ask. So I'll just say, make sure you hit enter. You're in a calm space free of any distractions, and then you can really focus on that assessment because it is timed once you hit go.
Awesome.
And just to back up 1 second,
Please.
so you don't always have to take these frightening online assessments. What they've started doing is an either or, and I don't know if this is for every single job, but the jobs I have applied to, it's an either or. So they call these assessment hurdles, and you'll be presented with either the online assessment where, like Aubin said, maybe you have 4 different ones. One of them is testing your judgment. One of them is testing your, I don't know, your reasoning. And, you know, maybe the first one takes you an hour and 10 minutes to do. Maybe the other one takes you 50 minutes. And you've got those 2 days to do it. But if you don't have to do those, what the hiring manager will ask for instead is a SME panel review or a subject matter expert panel review. And so the way that works is maybe like 3 people who are, so I'm a realty specialist, so maybe 3 realty specialists who could be in your region, they could be outside of your region. They're asked to review all of the resumes for the application, for the people who applied, and rate them and say, okay, this person's coming up as best qualified. Take a look at their resume and do a deep dive. Is this person truly best qualified? And so then they'll adjust the categories or keep them in the categories if appropriate. And that's the hurdle instead of taking these online tests.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
I can dive into this too because I just did my resume for this job. So this is where I really leaned on mentors, people who had applied before through USAJobs, and I think that's where I started. The best place to start is asking someone if they're willing to give you your resume as like a, hey, this is what mine look like. And I was able to use 2 current employee resumes, or actually 3, and kind of see their layout. Everyone has a different way of doing it. There is the one that USAJobs does for you. These 3 individuals did not use the way, and I've heard mixed reviews on that. And I think Amber and Aubin, you can agree. I don't know what people think about that resume builder, but I heard, building your own, maybe using it as like an aid, and then kind of making it as something unique that in your own way in a different structure. Because a lot of people will say, I think your education should go first, or someone should say, I think your experience should go first, or a little, what's that first thing that people put, like objective. So, different, I think people have different opinions, and kind of going with what you want. And the 3 that I had different ways to start out. But the biggest thing on that, which I talked about a little bit earlier, was using that your experience and what they, the qualifications. I'm not going to say copy and paste, but to be very, very, when I guess repetition is a good thing. It's when you use that entire USAJobs announcement to build that resume and use the verbiage in there, synonyms, to kind of find because you can make any experience relevant. I have I'd say I dabbled in a lot of things. So my experience wasn't, besides the ACE position, I had a background in like project management and renewable energy. I worked at a law firm, very different jobs, but I was still able to find that I did some sort of qualification that they wanted in those jobs, and kind of highlighting those into your resume. And even if you've done it at both jobs, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And I think that was the biggest advice I got on that. Um, and yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna kind of give my spiel on that.
You want to go next?
Robin. But
Oh, I was just asking if Amber wanted to go next, if she had anything to add.
I'm one of the people who has not used the resume builder on USA Jobs to create my resume. I've got, my own style, but what helped me make sure that I didn't leave out anything was I just did like a fake, I'll put some stuff into USA Jobs and have it build me a resume. And then I just compared the two of them, and I might have used like some of their layout in my own, but I think the biggest thing I used it for was just to make sure that every piece of information that an HR specialist is looking for is in there. And then also just checking the job announcement, because it will tell you everything that needs to be in there. When it comes to the dates of your job, like it will specifically say we need the month and the year that you started that and that you ended that position, things like that. What else? Oh gosh, the second to last point about removing non-relevant experience, this was so hard for me because my background is biology, ecology. I had a very long resume at the time that I applied for my current position, and I didn't want to let go of, all of this other experience. And I think I got some really good advice from a colleague of mine who is also a realty specialist in my office. And he was like, this isn't really relevant, Amber. Like you just don't need this anymore. Use your realty experience and anything else that you had duties that were relevant to qualifying for this position, or that were duties that you're going to be doing if you were in this job. And it was hard, but I chopped out a lot, and I think I've only benefited from it. I've gotten a tighter, shorter, more relevant resume out of that.
I saw something in the chat and it reminded me about your resume not being one page. As a business major in college, I was always told make it one page, shorter the better. They're just gonna look at it like really quickly and toss it aside. So you want to make it pretty and marketable and make your name as big as possible. And so it was really hard for me to completely pivot from having that ingrained in my brain as a business major. Like that's really, I feel like, where they ingrained in you sometimes, and to pivot away from that and make it long. And I know it's kind of contradicts what Amber's saying, but making it long, relevant, but it was going more than a page. I think mine is 2 to 3 right now, and so that was going against everything I was taught. So it is something to fight against, but it's that's what you have to do, and I think that's something that's really important to remember in that as well.
That's so funny, Gabby, because I was just gonna say, because coming from an academic background, it was like my CV is 15 pages. I need to really narrow this down.
Right.
And
I was just gonna say, Alvin, that mine's probably like somewhere around 10, 8,
Yeah.
10. I always put my references as my very last page, so it does make it one page longer.
Yeah. Well, I have heard from other various hiring people who have been on various hiring committees and panels. Their eyes really, like, they try so hard to do a good job and be like absorb what everyone is trying to say within their resumes, their cover letters. They said don't go over like 7 pages. So that's what the advice I've been given, and I'm in the midst of really cutting mine back down. The other thing I wanted to say is though, like a lot of, at least in realty, our duties also involve customer service and experience. And so I really was like grappling with, do I leave my customer service experience that I have like way back when? And I've heard from people like, yeah, that's relevant. So keep that, but maybe you don't need XXX, you know, all these other things that I thought were relevant for my cartography thing. But people like, you know, just really pay attention to what's in the job announcement. And if they say customer service and you have that, you know, you want to show that you have X many years of customer service experience, leave it in there when in doubt. So just like make sure you're not going to undercut yourself in any way, but try to be as concise as possible. So yeah, and make sure you have all of the relevant parts that they need to see in HR. Otherwise, again, they're immediately just going to toss your application package out that you spent so long trying to make pretty and relevant. You need to have like the hours that you worked, the contact info for your supervisors, like make sure you have everything before you submit.
We're coming down to the last couple slides here. Here's some tips and tricks. Who wants to take this? I think we've mentioned a lot of these honestly throughout the last hour, but we can, yeah, definitely overview them and add some more.
I would say also just while you are in ACE and you're making these really great connections with people, those are the people you want to use and leverage in your network. So say, hey, I'm interested in this position that just became available. You know, like if it's in the same agency or even not, just ask the people around you that you've been working with that are already part of the federal government. Do you know anybody over there? Can you help me network to find somebody who I can talk to who knows about this position or this region or this program? Because that really is where you get a lot of the inside scoop kind of what these people are looking for. Because another great thing about federal job postings is that a lot of people try to climb onto federal postings as much as possible because it's so hard to make a federal job posting, thanks to, you know, just bureaucracy. But I feel like for a biologist, that is so general, but they might be hiring like 5 different things off of that one job posting, and they all do something slightly different or maybe majorly different. And so contacting the people are like, if you can, is crucial because they will give you the inside scoop. Say, yeah, I've had someone say, yeah, this is a biologist position, but I really want them to, you know, host a mentoring program. I don't know how that's a biologist position, but it happens because people need to be creative in how they get these jobs filled because it takes a lot of effort and time to make that happen. So if possible, always try to leverage your network.
That's great advice.
I will say advocate for yourself. And I've talked to Amber and Avin about this a lot, especially if you're an ACE and you're in a position, an internship or fellowship, advocate. And I mean, do it, you know, in all aspects of your life, but with this especially. And I think that goes off with what Avin said. If you want to go outside of this position you're in, I mean, Teams has been great. I will literally look and see who has that position and be like, hi, I saw that you are the cartographer in region 2. Can you explain to me? And a lot of people are very willing to explain what they do and how they got it, what their background is. And as in someone who, and I think that Fish and Wildlife is breaking the stereotype a little bit, but like a lot of biologists, Avin, Amber, you know, like that background in science, as someone who didn't have that background, who was more of a business background, it was nice because when I did that, and I did find that people didn't necessarily have that biology background as well, it gave me a little bit of hope, and I like to figure out like how they got to where they were, and it really, you know, gave me that boost that I needed to be like, hey, I belong here too. So that's something to throw out.
Great.
And I will also just say, always have another set of eyes review your cover letter and your resume or CV, because people catch things that I totally forgot I had left in there from a previous job maybe. And it's like, oh yeah, you really don't need that in there. So just, it's always good to have another set of eyes.
Awesome. And I think when in doubt, apply. Just apply.
Yeah.
Just apply. Just do it. Even if you think you only hit 30%, 20%, 10%, just apply. Throw your name in the hat. What's the worst that can happen?
Yes, Elise. Oh my gosh. I actually recently threw my name in the hat for something like 3 months ago, and I did not write a cover letter, and I usually do.
Mhm.
And I got an interview and
Huzzah!
it went very well.
Congratulations. Look at you.
So yeah, I mean, I typically would recommend people doing a cover letter, but if you don't have time, still apply.
Yeah, do
Still
it.
still
Throw your
try.
name in.
Yep, you never know.
Alrighty, here's our last slide. We have contact information for these lovely folks here. If you have any questions, follow-up, things that kind of come up in the weeks and months to come, please take a screenshot of this screen. Also, I'm happy to, this will be uploaded for our community. But I did want to open it up if there were any direct questions from the audience now in our last few minutes here. Before we wrap up and we say thank you and goodbye. But first I want to open up for questions. I know I have a question actually, and it kind of speaks to the point that you were talking about earlier, Aubin, kind of that customer service aspect, right? Like I worked at a coffee shop back in the day when I was 18 for 2 years. Here we go. What if there is, from that experience, right? Then the experience I got after that might not be relevant. So there might be a gap in my resume or cover letter through that. Is that okay to show within like the federal, if it's a little bit fragmented, if you're trying to pin piece, like, oh yeah, I remember that one time I worked a summer camp and did X, Y, and Z. Is that okay to be a little bit fragmented and have some gaps and pieces? Have you guys seen anything to say that's not okay to do?
I haven't, I've had my, I'll just say, I've had my resume and CV looked at by a ton of people, and that I do have a gap. Maybe even a couple, just because it wasn't relevant, so I got rid of some experience.
Right.
And nobody has ever said boo or like questioned about that. So
Okay, cool.
as far as I know, but Amber, Gabby,
I can't think whether I have a gap. I probably do. I would have to look, but I agree with Aubin, that you can't spin some responsibility or
Right.
two from that position to apply it to the one you're looking to get, then I would just leave it off. Yeah, it's a really good question.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of got me thinking, Gabby, with your background of business, of like the things that were drilled into my head of like not going beyond one page, make sure I don't have gaps, make sure the dates they coincide. There's, something to said for something that I did in my life during this time, even when I was traveling or X, Y, and Z, right? So sometimes I get nervous on that just kind of as I'm building my CV, but that's good to know that at least from your experiences, you haven't seen negative.
I do also put more work experience available upon request within my professional experience section, just in case they do have questions. It's like, okay, yeah, I was working, but it wasn't, I didn't believe relevant to this experience. But again, nobody's ever questioned or commented about that. So, but if you want to add that little blurb, feel free.
Yeah, that's a great little thing.
I will add, because I don't know, and this might be one of those things about being at the business side of things. They always say their gap is always a bad thing, and I have had some gaps due to COVID, due to the pandemic, and no one's ever pointed that out to me. No one's ever been like, "Hey, I didn't see you worked for 9 months to a year here," and I don't know if that's just finally going away with, but I know that was something. I mean, growing up, even a couple years ago, like going into the looking for a career, looking for a job, that people were always like, you don't want a gap, or, and I've never experienced that, at least in the government hiring. No one's ever questioned those gaps as well, which is refreshing.
Very refreshing. Oh, looks we got a question in the chat. How long did it take from submitting the job application to your first day of work? I've heard anything from 3 months to 6 months. Yes.
Austin, you wanna
And yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes people are working really fast and that would be 3 months. It could take a lot longer. I have seen things like I've finally gotten noticed, like I guess maybe for things that I didn't get, even if I've gotten an interview, it still takes extra time to like let people know that. Yeah, it just works very slow. So be prepared to kind of wait and be patient. I've heard from some people that they were very persistent in contacting the hiring manager or people that they've, interviewed with if they got to that spot of like, hey, have you decided yet? Hey, have you decided yet? And that worked for one person. She actually got the position. And they were like, wow, you're tenacious. Like, we like that. And so I don't know if that works for everybody, but it definitely worked for her. So yeah, I would just say be very patient. And Amber, I feel like you want to say something too.
Oh, just because I've gone through this so recently. So yeah, the position I said I applied for in March. The interview was, oh gosh, I think that was May. Like
March,
the end
April,
of
May.
May, maybe. And the information on accepting or declining any, or having an offer hasn't happened yet. So that's about 3 months. But then I want to say, Avin, when you and I applied, I think the jobs were posted and closed in like August. And I had my start date and my paperwork done. My start date was November 22nd.
Oh,
So
that's pretty quick.
the September,
Right.
October, like
Quick.
yeah, about 3 months for the whole thing. And I was on the job.
A fast track, I feel like, with the federal government. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Any
That's really
other
quick. I
please.
like that.
Right. Yeah, any other questions before the last couple minutes we've got here? Alrighty, well, I will end it with that. Amber, Gabby, Aubin, thank you so very much for your time with ACE, for giving all you did with ACE, and also for giving back kind of in your career after ACE. I cannot thank you enough for joining us today, for sharing your wealth, your wisdom, your knowledge, kind of the tips and tricks and hacks that you've learned along the way. Yeah, we will be in touch. Thank you again, also everybody in this space, for joining us, asking your questions, being engaging. This was incredible. Thank you very much and have a great day, y'all.
I will just say, if anybody's interested in hearing more about Fish and Wildlife Service, I am happy to be contacted. And if you want to be connected with people, I'm happy to be a connector. I'm sure Amber and Gabby feel the same, but I don't want to speak for them. But
100%. I was gonna say that any of us would be so happy to have you reach out and to help you however we can.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you didn't have a chance to catch the slide here, you can find my contact information via our ACE website, and I'm happy to be a liaison to share information. If there are ACE members in the space here, please reach out to your supervisor and we can make those necessary connections as well. But thanks again, y'all. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Elise.